Almost heaven, West Derbyshire, when it's passing Derwent River. Life is older than the trees, younger than the hillside, growing like a breeze. Country roads take me home to the place I belong, West Derbyshire on Kawasaki. Take me home, country roads. Well, hello again, it's Andy, Derbyshire Rural Rider, occasionally riding South Yorkshire and Staffordshire and possibly Nottinghamshire at times, but it's back in Derbyshire today, back on the west side of Derbyshire, hence the karaoke introduction that mentions that part of the world. So this ride, it's about 15 degrees hotter than it was last week when I did a rather chilly ride into South Yorkshire. What I'm doing on this one, I'm doing parts of an old ride that I did that was absolutely awful photography on it. It was a foggy day, it was very shaky because I was still using the camera mounted to the mirrors on my old scooter, and it was just shaky, horrible, terrible exposure. So I thought I'd go back and revisit some of my old rides and try and do them with better quality. Now looking at this, it's not perfect with the camera alignment. I've recently put the handlebar risers on, and they're about an inch higher and about an inch closer to me, and I do have to set the camera to a slightly different position that I did before. It's a bit more in a vertical position on my chest camera. But I think it's probably slightly low tilt. It's going a bit to the petrol tank on. The ideal bit is just to get the sort of top level of the handlebars and the speedometer on, and the B-line right on the bottom edge. But it's certainly better than when I did it in September, 16th of September 23, if anybody's daft enough to go back and look how bad the old one was and see how it's improved with the settings on the camera and the position of the camera so it's not vibrating about all over the place. Now looking at the start of the video, the reason why I posted that picture of the tractor markings was it's something that made the pub 5 Minutes of Fame, when it was on telly, that they'd put these markings on for the tractor based on disability markings, and it raised quite a bit of interest. So my idea was to park the bike in these markings and identify as a Harley Davidson, but unfortunately there's a car in it which must be identified as a tractor or something, I don't know. So I didn't get the chance to do that, so I just took a picture of them anyway. And then the earlier picture, it's I've got a shirt on that says Biker Grandad, a present from me grandkids 2 or 3 years ago. But just looking at the photo, it's don't really show all the writing up, but I posted it anyway. Yeah, it's quite a nice pub where I start off from. I didn't visit it. I didn't visit it, I just parked up there as my start to my route and set the camera and the other settings that I need me relive and the B-line and that sort of thing. It's the anchor at, I think the address is Tideswell. It's on the A623 just outside Tideswell. I think it's a Tideswell address. On the ride I did in 2023, I didn't start there. I started at, I think it was Lytton, and turned down that lane on the way, and so this part of the ride, it is exactly the same as part of that ride, but I've noticed just from looking at it again, I missed one of the turn-offs. On the previous one I carried on and did a slightly different route round, probably narrow back lanes. They'd got grass down the middle of them, what some refer to as a Derbyshire dual carriageway. So there's certainly better scenery to see than there is on the previous one. That was so foggy in places you couldn't really appreciate the views, and parts of this route are some of the best views in Derbyshire in my opinion. I know there's one landmark that a lot of people comment about in a negative way. It's Hope Cement Works that you can see from miles around. In fact, it might be somewhere on distance in this one. I spotted it from quite a way away when I was filming it, but I don't know if the camera's picked it up properly, but it's certainly a landmark that stands out quite a bit. Now, I think this was the one where I wasn't quite sure whether to turn or not, because sometimes if there's two turnings close together, the B-line doesn't always show those up that clearly. So when I rode it previously, I did carry on probably about a mile further down and then turn down this single track road. So this part of the ride is slightly different, but it comes out in the top of Castleton like the other one did. It's certainly been a fairly traffic-free route. Not seen anything coming in the opposite direction for quite a while. I know Castleton's a very busy place, particularly on a hot bank holiday weekend. It was the Friday that this was filmed, but you're quite busy in Castleton itself. But obviously this is not a route that most people would take to get to Castleton, and it's certainly a lot better for being on the motorbike than it is on the main roads with all the traffic lights and all the other hold-ups. Very little uses this road apart from the local farm traffic. You certainly wouldn't want to get a heavy goods vehicle down here. So on this ride I'm going down into Castleton and then up to Edale. There's great scenery on that side, and up the old favourite of the Winnets Pass, which is probably the best known road in Derbyshire for scenery. I think there might be the cement works in the distance there, unless my eyes are deceiving me. No, probably not. They probably were deceiving me. I believe it's there as we're just coming around the bend, and I've posted a link with it. It's about 20 years ago it was featured on a television programme on Dave Spikey comedy about a local newspaper, and there's some sort of sinister goings on in the factory. I can't remember exactly what it's depicted as being, but it was all about like the fairly trivial news in local newspapers. Dead Man Weds, I think it was called. So there's a marvellous view, and then you go around the corner and you see the cement factory, which quite a lot of people complain about it as spoiling the view, but when you think about it, industry was around in the Peak District and the other countryside a long time before they became touristy areas. And there's the big chimney that belongs to it. Spot that white van in front. I've followed him for quite a long way, but more about that later. So here we are, and there's the link to the TV comedy Dead Man Weds. But going back to talking about the local industry, Cromford and Matlock Bath area, I've got to mention Matlock Bath because it's good for the algorithms. There's quite a lot of milling industry around there, and the Arkwright family that started off the milling there. It was sort of one of the biggest advances in the Industrial Revolution, certainly in terms of fabric making. And then there's other places like Lumsdale Falls, which is on the outskirts of Matlock, a very picturesque waterfall. That area began life as a fabric dyeing factory. Then you think of places in other areas like just outside Derbyshire, there's Rother Valley, which is a great country park, and I believe that was a open casting area for coal. I'm catching up with the white van again. Well, this road's a bit gravelly in parts, so I wasn't really wanting to speed down it anyway. It's not too bad in this part. He kindly waves me past. There's a house for sale there. I wonder how much that is compared with one in town centres and busy towns like Chesterfield, where I live. I mean, it's a nice place to visit, but I'm not sure if I'd want to live in such a crowded tourist area. It must be very difficult to find parking spaces for the cars, because it looks like most of them rely on street parking. So I ignored the navigation and went this way round. which is probably a mistake because there's quite a few people walking about that I had to give way to. Quick nod to biker going up. And then as soon as I get to the junction, there's a car in front of me who was wanting to turn the other way. So there, just going past me, is the white van that waved me on. So he obviously took a better route through the village than I did. He's back in front of me. I don't know if it's a camper van. I don't think it's an industrial van. But looking down here on the road ahead, it's chock-a-block with lots of motorhomes and smaller camper vans. It's a very popular spot to park and I presume they park up and go walking, which in a way it's good for the area. I mean, it's a good thing to be able to do, but I suppose a lot of them bring their own picnics rather than spend money in the several cafes that they've got in Castleton. So ahead is the dead end road that was at one time main road, and if you look at that, it's absolutely full of camper vans. But I'm turning off here, going up to Winnett's Pass. The white van must be a camper van because it's obviously on the road that goes to nowhere. It goes to a gated road, which I think it's declassified as highway. You used to be able to go through, but last time I had a look to go a gate on it. Now I've seen videos of people using the abandoned road, sort of unofficially, but it's been like abandoned and derelict since 1979, and you've got to be a bit of an off-roader to be able to use it, I think. So here we are at one of the most photographed parts of Derbyshire, Winnett's Pass. Never made my mind up if it looks better going down it or going up. I think there's spectacular views to be seen whichever way you're going. Now I've heard quite a bit of discussion lately about these double red line road markings which are going up round here, which are sort of more strictly enforced than even double yellow lines, because I think at double yellow lines you can pick up and drop off from there, but the double red lines you're not supposed to stop at all because of obstructing traffic. And there was some problems last winter, I think, with the gritters not being able to get through to high ground, plus it's stops emergency services if the road's blocked from people parking up to go hiking. It don't look like there's any on this bit, so surely people can't park on here. That cause a total obstruction. The first time I rode this was on a 125 scooter on a gale force wind day. It was that bad, it was almost blowing the scooter off its stand, but I did it anyway because I'd made the effort to get in there, and I was that slow going up on 125 scooter. When I posted the video, I posted it at increased speed, otherwise it would have been a very long video of me just going up Winnett's Pass. I mean, some might say my videos are too long anyway, but I don't really like to cut bits out when it's a nice road. So that filmed one that I mentioned in 2023. I think I turned left there and then found a nice back lane back to Peak Forest. But on this one I'm going right and around Edale Loop. So here we have the start of these red lines that have only been marked out a couple of weeks ago. Still seems to be a few laybys that don't have parking restrictions, but it just stops people parking all the way along and causing total chaos, really, so it's not a bad idea. So there's a road off to the right that goes down to some of the caves. That is part of what used to be the main road, and it comes out at the abandoned bit of road at the other end. There does seem to be a good stretch of these red lines. And that's when I realised I missed the turning. Too busy admiring the scenery and missed the turning. So a bit of a 3-point turn here. Luckily not too busy. If I'd not missed the turn, it's quite a sharp one there looking at it. So this road goes up to Edale and then loops right round to Hope. So I stopped for a quick ice cream at Edale, and then after that I went down to Hope, which I've filmed it before, so I only filmed it going as far as Edale this time. So some great views around here, and even though we're high up at the moment, it gets even higher at the opposite side. I can understand why they have a mountain rescue based in Edale, because hear quite regular reports of people falling or slipping or needing assistance in other ways, so they do seem to be quite busy, the mountain rescue people around here. I suppose technically it's not a mountain, but it's some great big hills anyway. And as that bloke on the motorbike, Dave, would say, look at those views. Now speaking of him, I'm one of the subscribers to his YouTube channel, and he's having a meeting in a few weeks of subscribers, so I'm intending going on that, and I think that'll take in this part of the country, meeting up at Fairhomes Cafe and near the reservoirs, and having a bit of group ride out. I've no idea how many to expect. I think if there's a lot, we're doing that drop-off system where the person second from the front stops when told to do by the leader, stops at junction and sees everybody else through and then joins the back. So I've never tried that, so it'd be interesting to see how that works. Group rides I've been on, sometimes following, sometimes leading, it's probably no more about 7 or 8, so you can generally wait for everybody to get past the junction. But if you're talking about 20 or 30 riders, then you've got to have some system so those at the back know where they're going, I suppose. So this part's on the outskirts of Edale, and it's quite a popular place for hiking and for camping, which understandably, looking at all the walks in the surrounding areas and the scenery, can walk up to. There's a couple of cafes in there. There's one at the station, and then a bit further down the lane there's one that's sort of joined onto a pub. I don't know if it's part of the pub or if it's a separate business altogether. Still some good views to see, even though we're quite surrounded by trees in this part of the area. I'm presuming what we've just passed is the main part of the village, and then the part where the station is, that's more of a visitor type area. That's where the camping sites are. That house there must have some good views from the back of the house. So we're just approaching where the station is now. So there is one of the cafes there next to the station. I was pondering going in there, but looking at that, they didn't look like there were much parking there. I think it's mostly yellow lines. I might have got away with parking on the footpath, but I might not. I didn't fancy parking in a car park away from where I was going to be sat having a drink. So I just carried on down here to the cafe, which is part of the campsite. I've been to this one before, because when I asked for the Wi-Fi, I was about to type it in, and it remembered it on my phone, so I must have been there sort of in the lifetime of this phone, which is probably had it more years than I should have, really. I'm not one of these for changing phones every year just for the sake of it. I pay up to the end of the contract and then get a reduced price just for airtime. As long as they work, they work. I've had quite a few iPhones over time, but I don't go for the latest model. I just go for what's functional. So there's a car park for the pub, but I don't know if they wanted to use that for the cafe. So I went in here. I pulled up by the fence initially. That's where I stopped filming. But then they said there's some big vehicles go up here. You better move in. So I moved round to the back of the cafe and then went in the back entrance, which is probably the less a scenic view of the cafe. I'll write the name of it on. I can't remember the name of the cafe now, but it is quite nice for snacks. Just had my ice cream and I was ready for cooling down and sitting out at sun. To be honest, it was that hot compared with my last ride, where I was in a cafe and I couldn't get inside, so I sat freezing outside until the table came up. I think it must be about 25 degrees on this one, and getting hotter over the bank holiday, which is unusual. So here's my map going on the end then, and until the next one, goodbye and all the best.